Okay, welcome everybody to the number 19th Circle of Wine Writers Let's Taste, beg your pardon, Let's Taste session. This is number 19. Majority of you have attended these events before, but those of you who do not, this is a Circle of Wine Writers event. The Circle was founded in 1960 in the UK, and today we have 260 members plus in the UK and around the world. 50% are based in the UK and the rest are in the rest of the world. We're comprised of wine writers, broadcasters, educators, and other professional communicators. There's more information about the Circle on our website, and also you can look into finding more about joining the Circle if you wish from there. Those of you who are not members and are not yet on our list of invitations, if you would like to be invited to future sessions, then please do let us know. I'd now like to hand over to Liz Gabay, who handles these events on behalf of the Circle of Wine Writers, to start the event. Over to you, Liz.
Hello, everyone. Very warm welcome to everyone who's attending, and particularly to our team of presenters. It's led by Elisabetta, who's president of Rosés Maris, the independent association of producers of rosé wines in the Tuscan province of Grosseto. And there are 21 members, of whom we have 6 representatives here today. And alongside Elisabetta, we have Liz Gabay, who is a member of the Circle, and as everyone knows, Master of Wine, the expert on rosé wines. She's going to introduce each producer and the wines. And then we have a representative from each of the producers who is there to fill in more information and help answer any questions. So let's go over to Elisabetta first.
You need to unmute Elisabetta. Elisabetta?
Elisabetta, you have to unmute.
Yeah. I'm doing. It's okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So first, thank you to everybody. Okay, at the beginning, I want to simply introduce the association which Rosés Maris. Okay, the association Rosés. Okay, Liz Gabay. I'm preparing a sort of a PowerPoint, as you see. And began in 2015 with the end of announcing rosé wine produced in Maremma, and it joined wineries and producer of the province of Grosseto. We are now 21 members. This is the photo of La Casa Rossa, which is a museum where we did the first tasting. That's why we put these photos. Okay, we are in Tuscany, and the region of Tuscany is divided in 10 provinces, and we are in the southeast, in the province of Grosseto, which is the largest province and the least populated. In fact, our territory is only 4,050 square kilometers, and it means that there is a density of a population about 50 people per square kilometer. In the past, we used to have agriculture, dairy farming, breeding horses and cattle, and the coal furnaces, with a larger part of a Mediterranean forest that we call Forteto or Macchia Mediterranea. As you will see, now there is only the 20% of land which is cultivated. And for the rest, we have still 45% of woodlands, which means that, okay, there is this graphic, and you see that the woodland is 44%, and the 20% is summing up the vineyard, olive groves, and the vineyard are only the 2%. So, you know, we are in a quite in a very natural place. You know, we thank the consortium of Maremma for these data he gave us.
Okay. It is due because in the past there was malaria, so we had a lot of in the flat we had a lot of humid areas, which were breeding grounds for mosquitoes, and malaria was then eradicated at the end, in the middle of the 20th century. So all the viticulture start at the end of the 20th century. Okay. Sorry. So it's true that we are in. So there is a big. I mean, it's a place where there is a big balance between nature and man, of course, because I mean, we are few, living here. And regarding our tradition for wine, we, of course, we are Tuscan. We are in Tuscany, so we are following. Sorry.
Do you want me to move the screen on?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I was saying that we are living in Tuscany, and so we have, of course, a close link with the region and the tradition. But beside, the traditional grapes, which could be, for example, Sangiovese and Ciliegiolo, we are also quite innovative, and we planted the so-called international grapes such Cabernet, Merlot, Syrah, which is true that demonstrated to grow very well in the coastal part of Tuscany. One point that we wanted to discuss was the why there are so many differences in the rosé wines from Maremma. And of course it is not, I can't give an answer, it is not easy to answer, but I mean, that's because there are many different soils, many different microclimate, and of course there is the producer has its own creativity and vision about the wine. But what is important to underline that besides this great diversity or biodiversity, as we want to call it, there is a great coherence, and each producer, I mean, in the project they are bringing forward, and there is also a great respect and dialogue with the area where they live and work, which means that, of course, we are in a region where is recent the viticultura and the producing wine. But I mean, we are looking at the tradition, but at the same times we are very modern in our way of doing wine, and also in the relation with the place where we live and work. Sorry, I had some problem technical.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, as I decided to prepare this PDF, so can be follow it easier, and also everyone can have it again, if they need.
Thank you, Elisabetta.
Yeah.
And now hand over to
So I
Liz
think
Gabay.
we're showing the film while I talk over it,
Yep.
so that we have more time for the producers.
Yep.
And I just wanted to talk a bit about where Maremma is, because it's all very well us saying that it's in southern Tuscany, but just to the northern bit we have Bulgari, and to the along the shore, and to the northeast we have Morellino di Scanzano and Brunello di Montalcino. So it really is the sort of tail end just to the south of these big red wine producing areas. And maybe worthwhile saying that when Bulgari first started, it was also a rosé producing area. So for a number of years now, producers in this southern region have considered producing rosé. There is no sound on this film, so that's why I'm talking over it. So for those of you, probably quite a lot of people have been or have seen pictures of Chianti, which is obviously the most well-known part of Tuscany. And I think what struck me when I was in Maremma is that you really get the feeling of the hills in the north, so where Ampeleia is and Morris Farms, and it gradually, the hills get smaller and smaller along the coast. As Elisabetta said, there were mosquitoes, the coastal area, there's a lot of flat land. This is cowboy country, literally. There were big cattle, big horned cattle with cowherders on horseback for the marshland. And the very word Maremma is referring to the fact it's a coastal area. So as if you can visualize it, we've got bigger hills in the north, going flatter and flatter towards the south, but still with gentle hills where we have the vineyards rolling down, usually facing towards the sea, if I'm right. Maybe some of the producers will interrupt me and say, no, not always facing the sea. A lot of woodland giving a cooler climate, maritime breezes, and as you can see, very, very gentle fields with the olive groves. You can see, I think I'm right, Elisabetta, it's the island of Elba offshore. Yes, is that right?
It is Giglio, Isola del Giglio. Island of Giglio, yes.
And which many people, I think it's where Costa Concordia went down, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's famous for other reasons, but we're sort of very, very picturesque coastline and a very beautiful area. And there's even one beach which I've never been to where the sound of the waves going through the sand is supposed to sound like violins. So, you know, a beautiful area, a very quiet area. And as Elisabetta said, an enormous amount of space. So when I was driving around all of these vineyards, I visited all 6 of these. You do go through an enormous amount of empty countryside and forests. It really is very, very idyllic. And the town of Grosseto itself is also very beautiful. But I think we're ready to start. So my idea is for this, really, I want the producers to talk, not me. And they're going to discuss with you each of their rosés. If you have a question, please do put it in the chat. And even if it's during the presentation, and we'll try and address questions as we go so that you've got some interaction. Do feel free to make it a dynamic presentation. So I think we go over to Eva first from Monteti, which is the most southerly vineyard in this presentation. Eva, are you around? Yes. So over to you.
Hello, thanks. Thank you very much, Elisabeth, for this very beautiful presentation of our land. Thank you, everyone, to be here for hosting us. And I'll take a few elements of both your presentation. There are key concept for our work. We are, if you look at the map, you should have received with the PDF, we are, as Elisabeth was saying, the most south. We are number 14 on the map. We are at 15 kilometers from the sea, and in our area, particularly in our area, there at the time we arrived there 26 years ago. At the time, there was not a big significant cultivation of vineyards or winemaking. There was a cooperative that was already closing. So we arrived there as truly with the pioneer spirit. And this brings me to what Elisabetta was saying, this freedom, being there in a very renowned region of Italy for wine producing as Tuscany, but in a bit of it still undiscovered, completely free, where you could just look around and do what you felt would be the best. So that is what we have done actually, and we decided to plant we started the plantation in 2000. We decided to plant the so-called international varieties that for us don't lead at all to an international taste. They are international because they simply adapt perfectly, brilliantly to different latitudes. We opted for Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Merlot, and Alicante Bouschet at the beginning. For the rosé, we added Mourvèdre. So you notice immediately that we don't have Planta Sangiovese, which is commonly the grape, the typical grape that you have in mind when you think about Tuscany. That's why, because this freedom demanded us to simply follow the soil. As Gabay was saying, is that we have different microclimate in Maremma, and the Tenuta Monteti microclimate demanded for is a very hot area. The conditions were perfect to plant, for example, Petit Verdot, that in our area in France, for example, don't get to full ripening because of the climate, because it's a late ripener. So we opted for what the soil and the climate of our small valley really were calling for. So this freedom also is a big responsibility, because you are there with your project, with your ambitions. You're right there you have to plant and imagine and take lots of decisions, but you have also to study a lot. That's what we did for many years. The project was started with 2 red wines actually, and the first vintage produced were the 2004, and it took us 10 years to produce the first TM Rosé. In these 10 years, what have we done? We have done lots of research, because what we wanted to do is, with these international varieties, get to a very territorial result, to speak about the land around us. So we had the woods. The Monteti is a hill that we have in front of our vineyard that protects us and create a canal of breeze, of marine breeze in our vineyard. So we have these woods. We have the Macchia Mediterranea that Elisabetta was talking before, so the Mediterranean scrub. We were able to describe all these aspects of the inland, but there was something missing for us. There is some element missing in this portrait of the land we have around us. And this was talking rightly about this breeze, this marine breeze, that we have also the big influence on our reds. But we felt like it was time to give an identity to this breeze, to this influence of the sea. Actually, from the top part of the vineyard, you can see the sea at 15 kilometers, you can see the coast. So we tried to vinify in white the Merlot downhill that generally was not so satisfying for the reds. And from there on, we have done a lot of research, technical improvements, and we are here with the TM Rosé 2023 that you can try, and then I hope you received, and you will know some point if you didn't receive it.
Can I ask, Eva, I've noticed you've got Mourvèdre in the rosé, which is an interesting mix with the Cabernet and the Merlot. What made you think of Mourvèdre?
Because we were looking for some, a little bit of more depth and a little bit of flowery notes that I really love in wines. So, and Mourvèdre gives us these 2 little elements that we felt we wanted to add. Also because we have a beautiful garden, so it's with fantastic roses and flowers, and we want sort of include it into the panorama.
I mean, for those who don't have the wine, for me, Merlot is usually the grape variety I like least in a rosé, because it's often too big and blousy. And in this wine, you've managed to get amazing acidity, but it's not unripe. It's a very structured, the Mourvèdre is giving it beautiful backbone, and there is this maritime freshness which really cuts through any chance of Merlot being horrible, flabby, and not so good. So it's a very, very precise and vibrant rosé. I don't know if anyone else who has the wine available to taste has anything on this. And when you visit the vineyard, it really is in a valley. We walked down the valley towards the sea so that you get these different expositions of the vineyards. Were there any questions?
Well, what I could say, it's to talk about this acidity. It's very early picked. All the grapes are picked 10 days before the full ripening. And we take great care of, for example, avoid being so immature. The risk is to having harsh notes. So we take great care to not have harsh tannins, destemming, crushing very gently, not to get to crush it completely. So it's dry, it's fresh, but also as reflects our microclimate, because also, as you say, has some big structure too. No, we think it's also can perfectly accompany a meal.
And one more thing, so maybe other people will be able to talk about this as we progress. How was the 23 vintage?
The 23 vintage was quite challenging because we had a strange ripening phase. So we have to wait a little bit more, and we have low crops, lower than usual. Well, usual, it's not a word that you can use anymore in viticulture. Nothing is usual anymore, but what a very, very interesting vintage. Yes.
Okay, great. So maybe if we go on to Bruni, and then we can come back and have a sort of joint discussion amongst everyone on how we see the rosés. But the 23 is actually showing beautifully at the moment, and there are some very interesting comments in the chat, so that's very good. Okay, so let's go along to Bruni.
Hello.
Hi.
Bye. Good evening to everyone, and welcome to Bruni Company. And it is pleasure have you as guest. I leave the word to my brother Marco Bruni, is the winemaker to the company, that will be able to explain better than me all. No. Because my English is very, very no good.
Hello.
Hello.
I did say earlier on, I said, for most of us, we can't do a presentation in the second language. So we're all in terrible admiration of you doing a presentation in English. So Bruni is probably one of the closest vineyards to the sea, are you, on this presentation?
I don't send. You don't send them. Can you repeat? Please?
Can you repeat, please?
You send me.
You're very close to the sea as vineyards. You're one of the closest. Your proximity to the sea.
1 kilometers half. Very near.
Okay.
Very near.
Very near. Okay. Do you want to tell us about your wine and why you make a rosé and anything about it?
The rosé is made with Syrah and Grenache grape variety. to notice for my company. My company is a very old winery in the South Maremma. The first vintage started in 1973. And the first wine bottle hand, La Marta Red. And at that moment, the family decided they want to produce for the future of company. Now, rent house around 60 hectare vineyards and produce over 500,000 bottles 1 year. Rosé produce repeat with made Grenache and Syrah 50-50.
So just talk about Syrah and Grenache, and it's very specific to Tuscany that Grenache is called Alicante.
Exactly, Alicante Grenache are the same grape, but in the South Tuscany is in the history, and Maremma has been influenced too many peoples. For example, the south of the French for the protected Papal State, in the north of the Florence, Lorenzo de' Medici, or the west of the Spanish, and because of the Grenache, Syrah, or Vermentino. And this area is famous and for the another grape respect to the central or north Tuscany area. The Grenache is a new grape for my company, and the first wine I produced in 10 years ago.
So why did you plant Grenache?
Why?
Why? I know you experiment.
Very elegant, but it's true. But for the red wines, I made the wines very elegant. For me, is the Pinot Noir for the South Mediterranean area. I have the too much strong body, too much rich in the parfum, but it's very elegant and tannic in the taste. And I have the very, very long life in the bottle. My company has a different red wine for the produce in the Tuscany area. Syrah, but it's a very strong wine, strong grape, strong wine, and have the touch, different touch for the parfum and the spicy to fresh to elegance to particular. So for me, it's a good balance, good mixing.
So I think what's for those of you who do not have this wine available to taste, for me it's showing, I mean, although the grapes are a Southern Rhone blend, Syrah Grenache, it again has the similar sort of vibrant acidity to the Monteti rosé, but there's also an enormous amount of ripe fruit. So how have you balanced the acidity and the amount of fruit? What are you doing to get that nice combination of fruit and acidity?
Well, yes, and thank you for the good comparison with Monteti. Thank you. But every day, the wind from the sea, and greatly influence the salinity, the wine, the grape. Have the hand have the wine, a very good balance to fresh parfum and salinity, salts on the taste.
Elizabeth, did you have a question?
Yeah.
No.
Do you repeat? You repeat, please.
So, no. Sorry, there's another Elizabeth. Yeah, a lot of straw insipidity. Yes. So I think other people are also mentioning this fruit and salinity coming through, and I think this is something very, very typical of the region showing this. Has anybody thought of making a rosé in oak? Because this has so much fruit and freshness. I'm sort of thinking possibly there is potential for a rosé in oak. Marco? Would you ever put your rosé? Would you ever put your rosé in a barrel in oak?
In a oak?
Yeah.
Because I don't like this style?
No. It's just that there is so much fruit and so much freshness. I was just thinking that it would carry a bit of wood as well, or a different rosé.
Okay, no. I don't like and taste the wine, the rosé with the oak, because I prefer produce the wine when the aroma intense and respect to the grape and the flower from grape.
Okay.
Quindi I think prefer the cement or still for the fresh wine. But in South Tuscany have the in general the wine with too much body and a very structured, but the tank is very soft. It's very come dire, dolci, sweety. I don't interesting this maturation for a long time in the oak.
Okay.
I prefer use for the reserve, my reserve red wine, the big oak, respect to barrique or traditional small oak.
Okay. So for those curious as to why I asked Marco about barrels, his cellar, he has some wonderful small barrel examples, and has a great selection of wines if anyone wants to visit and taste from the barrel. It was worth it. Okay, lovely wine and tasting beautifully. Can we go on to Donata, please? Thanks a lot, and we'll come back to you. Is Donata here?
Hi.
Yay! Hi, Donata.
Me, Mary is my first person that came with me to me. And
we have an echo. We have an echo listening to you.
No, because one more I say.
So while Donata is sorting out the volume, this is the only, well done. This is the only rosé in today's tasting, which is 100% Ciliegiolo. And as the name suggests, for those who know a bit of Italian, it refers to the cherry character. It's often made into red wine and blended in with Sangiovese. And I love this wine. So, Donata, carry on. Ciliegiolo Rosé.
Now it's better?
Now it's better.
Okay, perfect. So it's a pleasure for me to speak about this rosé. That is 100% of Ciliegiolo. The Ciliegiolo grapes is very nice, but it's not easy to obtain in the red because it's very salty. So is good for the England market, for the red England market, because and also USA. But we think that is perfect for the rosé wine because the part is perfect balance with not sensitivity part of noise, and it's not easy for me to speak about our. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear.
It's not easy to speak about our seller because it's not family seller, it's a cooperative. So we represented all part of Maremma, and it's very interesting because our wines is a representative of all parts of all different modality to obtain wines in this beautiful and very old area. So this wines is specifically in the south part of Maremma, is in the park is Uccellina. So it's organic wines, and we use a lot of cement, and so we think that is very balsamic and with cherry taste. And in the smooth is soft, but also fresh. Because the acidity is not very high because it's Maremma, but it's medium and it's perfect to obtain good. But this is my idea that I know very well this wine, and it's very interesting that Mary is Mary think the same connection for this wine. And for to answer about the possibility to use the lipstick in these wines is idea. I think that is a good idea. The barrique not toasted.
Okay.
So to obtain more fresh parsley.
And is it right, though, I'm just going back to where the grapes come from. This is a vineyard in the national park, but it's almost on the beach, no? It's very sandy soil?
Yeah, sandy and a bit clayey there. So there we were talking about sandy soil and a tiny bit clayey as well. So I mean, we have 85 hectares of ciliegiolo in total. So we're talking about a very vast area as well. But that's the tendency, yeah. For where there is
are you finding that the ciliegiolo changes its flavor depending on the vineyard? I mean, this is from a very maritime, sandy vineyard. How different is it to a vineyard maybe further from the sea?
It does change the wine, especially like it's hard to tell because obviously as a cooperative we do selection. We select the ciliegiolo, which would be then the organic ciliegiolo for our rosé. But clearly due to climate differences, I mean, the closer we are to the sea, the stronger will be the sea breeze. The further away, the sea breeze might have like a secondary effect. Or like the higher if we are in the hills, like the change between day and night temperatures could be different, be higher. So that plays onto the structure of the acidity or also the polyphenols.
Mm-hmm. Because I mean, it comes over as a sort of very delicately vibrant wine. It doesn't have the concentration of the first two, and I'm thinking that is typical of ciliegiolo. Yes,
that's true. That is true. Yes.
And is the skin? I mean, is it quite thin-skinned as a grape?
Ciliegiolo depends.
Yeah, it depends.
It depends. Yeah, I would say it depends actually. But I would give it personally, I would give it a medium because it really depends. I wouldn't say it's specifically thin, but I wouldn't say it's specifically thick either.
Okay.
That's like in my experience. But I mean, I may be mistaken now, but like This is what I would say.
No, I think like the yeah.
Okay, so I think it's showing this maritime character very, very beautifully. Do you make any other rosés, or is it only the Ciliegiolo rosé that you make?
We do have this is our DOC rosé. We do have an EGT rosé, which is Sangiovese.
Mm-hmm.
From our line called Tramonto, Sunset, Sundown. Sundown, sorry.
Sundown.
Yes.
Okay, so that's sort of very
So,
interesting. I love the fact that it's Ciliegiolo and it's a totally different grape variety. I'm just looking. Can we please have the retail price? Maybe if we can ask all producers at the end, if you can just run down and give us a price of the wines.
yeah.
And for those who might be visiting the area, I can say probably the best lunch I've ever had was with Donata at the cooperative, because she has the most wonderful delicatessen counter with local produce. If you can get there, definitely worth it. It was fabulous. So Donata's idea of what matches with the food and wine has all that fresh vibrancy of Maremma. So we'll come back to you later when we have the full discussion. And
I'm very happy about it.
And if we can go on to Morris Farms, actually, who also do a wonderful meal, but on a smaller quantity. Giulio, are you around?
Yes, I'm turning on the microphone. Hello.
Hi. So Giulio has a family vineyard with a tasting room high up on a hill with splendid views. So it's one of the higher altitude vineyards, I think, in this selection. Am I right?
I mean, I don't know if I'm the highest. I'm around 70 meters upon the sea level. So
that's low. Okay, right.
Yeah,
To
not
get
so
the
high.
high altitude bit. Okay, over to you.
So usually I have to start explaining the name of the company, because when people hear the name Morris Farms, that doesn't sound so Italian. Morris is my mother's last name. We came from Spain over 300 years ago, but we live here in Tuscany. The correct name to write Morris Farms is Morris with just one R. The English name of the company is given by my uncle, who lives in San Francisco, and in 1971 he chose an English name, Morris Farms with S at the end, because we own two different companies. So this short introduction just to tell you that we are Tuscan producer with just a complicated name. We have two different wineries. One is located slightly south Grosseto, and one is located in the northwest part of Maremma. We are our neighbor is almost Bulgari. In the vineyards where we produce the Rosato as clay soil. I wanted to make you note, when there was the video before about the vineyards, the video that you show, I really appreciated to see the wind. In that video, the director was able to represent the wind. And I think it's a really important part of the weather condition here in Tuscany. We have a constant afternoon wind that really helps to clean the clouds. We always speak about rain, we always speak about temperature, but we have to remember that it's the sun that really touch the grapes that brings the ripeness. And Toscana and Maremma actually is really a sunny area, and we have thousands of hours. I have all the statistics I was reading before of how many hours we have of sun. I don't find now, but we have this sun that bring the ripeness of the grapes at its top. Our Rosato is 100% Sangiovese. It's done with no skin contact. We take the grapes middle of September, when we try to have them as ripe as possible. I mean, not completely ripe, but we try to do not exaggerate with the anticipation of the harvest. So we have some acidity, but we have even the complexity and the ripeness typical of the Sangiovese. We make immediately in a soft press, we put the grapes and immediately we cool down the temperature to 10 degrees for 3 days. And then we move in another tank where we start the fermentation, cleaned by the sediments that last for a couple of weeks. After that, we block again the malolactic fermentation with the temperature control, bringing the wine at 10 degrees again, 10 Celsius degrees, and we bottle a couple of months after. So we try to preserve the acidity that we like of a malolactic flavor. We try to give this green apple flavor just a little. You ask about the prices. My importer in UK sells this bottle for £15.50. That's on the shelf in UK.
I think it's showing very nicely the character of Sangiovese. You know, it's. I know that a lot of people will probably look at color and say, "Oh, you know, is this a? Can you see it? Not sure." A Provence style, but I think what I like about this wine is that it's showing Sangiovese style. It's not trying to be a Provence style rosé. It's got that structure and the minerality and some good intensity of fruit showing.
Yeah, I mean, as I told you, we crop the grapes almost. I mean, a few days before they could be for a red wine. We don't exaggerate with the anticipation of the harvest. So we have this color that is even richer than look likes actually. Depends on the light of your room.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that the date of harvest is always quite an important guideline for how structured the wine is. And also that you have slightly higher alcohol than the preceding rosés, 13.5.
Yes,
so it's a rosé, but it is tending towards a more gastronomic style with that weightiness. And
I think you're right. I mean, match very well with the food. I have always, I mean, I know that the customer looks for something lighter. I'm not the agronomist. I'm not the winemaker. I have an external one. And I always ask him, how can I make it with less alcohol and so on? He's explaining me that when you try to take just the softest part, the first one of the mostofiore, I mean, the flower of the most, the first part, it's the first one that releases even most sugar. That's why with my wine, I always have no less than 13%. It's difficult to be lower than 13. More around 13, 13.5. That gives this structure.
Fantastic. Right, I'm just looking at the clock and I'm talking too much. Can we go on to Magliano, to Niccolò, and taste quickly the second Sangiovese rosé?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Ciao.
So
can I just jump in? So I don't want to steal too much time. So my name is Nicola Lenci, and I'm part of the family ownership of Fattoria di Magliano. So Fattoria di Magliano is born from the passion of my father. He was involved in another business in his life. So luckily in the late 90s, he had the opportunity to sell it and to gain a quite good amount of money to invest in his passion, that was wine drinking. So he says to himself, how I could jump into the wine business and enjoy what I really do like to do in life, so drinking good wines. He was a world traveler, so he haven't fell in love initially just because of Italian wine. So I think that his mindset was really open-minded, and that's something that brought him to Maremma. Because at that time, in the 90s, Maremma was already made by winemaker, but not as known as now. Was, in my opinion, in our opinion, quite undiscovered, as many of my colleagues says before. But there were a lot of potential, especially for someone that didn't have tradition in winemaking, because I think that, as someone said before, Maremma can be really considered the cowboys area, no? The Wild West of Tuscany, in the sense that we feel like pioneer of this land. And when I say we, not my family, but all of us producers in Maremma, because what fascinated us were two things. First, the capability of the land to express in a very short time the unique personality of the producer. And then a region that it's been linked to the tradition of wines since before the Romans, but without a modern tradition. And when I'm saying modern tradition, I'm linked to the big appellation of Tuscany, very much well known, but those traditions can be, you know, a track to follow, but as well, it can be tight for the creativity of the producer. So that's something that really inspired us as well into the Rosato production, because I think it's pretty linked with the unique terroir of Fattoria di Magliano. We already says that Maremma is really, really versatile, really, really diverse, with some common aspect. The influence of the coastal area, so the water influence, the sea breeze, and the ripeness of grapes. Fattoria di Magliano is located on a hill beside Magliano town, and I can say it's the last hill descending from Scanzano towards to the coast of Argentario. So in my opinion, the uniqueness that fascinated us was the beautiful combination of the gentle hillside of Maremma, as Elizabeth mentioned at the beginning, with a 360 degrees of exposition to sunlight, but as well the influence of the coast. So you got a little bit of altitude, like 300 meters, not something like Morris Farm for sure, but it's a good combination with a Mediterranean influence. Also, our days are quite warm, as you may imagine is Maremma made by, but thanks to the influence of the coast, we have cool nights. So that's allowed us not only to express some indigenous grapes like Sangiovese, but especially Vermentino, that open up our mindset to be to want it to be considered the Mediterranean producer of Tuscany. So let's say that when my father planted the Vermentino, not really my father by itself, but when he made the Vermentino planting, there were 80 hectares in the region. So we are not being the first, but now there are 800. So something that opened up our minds, and we started to consider also the opportunity to produce a Rosato, because I think the Rosato, especially in Italy and in Tuscany, it can be something very linked to the modernity mindset that we want to have. And when I'm saying modernity, it's, in my opinion, not a rejection of our tradition, but just an opening to the world. Since that everybody knows Chianti, we don't want to appear like Chianti, we just want to stand out for our uniqueness. And I have to say that not only me, but all of our colleagues here are producing rosé because of an identitary reason, not to fill up our portfolio. Especially there are some inland area in Tuscany where they do produce rosé every now and then. We strictly believe that rosé is part of our identity, it's part of our Mediterranean orientation. And just because of that, we thought it was a nice idea to don't take too much advantage of the international grapes, because we are quite well known for our red style production of international grapes. But we want to be something in between our two, Vermentino and Sangiovese, Morellino di Scanzano Eba. So our Morellino, we do an interpretation of Morellino with the same grapes of our Sangiovese Rosato. And we always thought that the Vermentino in Magliano should be something bright, delightful, fruit-oriented, but really versatile, something that it doesn't need a special occasion to be popped up. So what we want to do with the Rosato is to express the uniqueness of our Morellino. Obviously, it's not an appellation Morellino, but it's a Maremma DOC. It's made by Sangiovese 100%, and we want to have this freshness of the coastal area. So let's say we've been inspired by the technique of the Provençal, but not by the identity of it. We want to do, let's say, a very slightly touch of early harvest, only 5 days in advance, 6 days. So nothing aggressive. We are waiting for the proper maturation. Just a little touch of crispiness and the freshness. Very short contact with the skin, just the time to squeeze it. In our case, it's something different from my previous colleague. So it's really just the Mosto Fiore. And then we kept in touch with final lees until the bottling time. So let's say at least 4 months. That's allowed us to get this round approach of fruit that I agree in the first pressing of the grape, it shows a kind of sweet tannins and roundness. But at the same time, we are able, thanks to the controlled temperature technique that we use in our cellar, to obtain wines with around 0.5 grams of residual sugar per liter. So they are extremely dry. So I think it's a good representation of what it is, Maria.
I think it's showing exactly. We've got some very interesting comments in the chat talking about the tasting notes. Again, having the structure and minerality of Sangiovese, but showing a slightly different direction for it. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you short on that, and we're going to have to rush on to the 6th producer. But I love the idea of looking at the grapes for famous reds and then coming into the rosés.
Elizabeth, excuse me, there is a question that is quite interesting, should be answered, because somebody's asking if Mosto Fiore is Segni.
I didn't see that.
It's important to clear it.
It's first run. It is first run. It's not Segni.
Oh, first run juice. It's
yeah.
You get some people talking about it's the the heart of the juice coming through. So our final, but by no means least, rosé is from the furthest from the sea, high up in the hills, surrounded by forests, and we have yet another grape variety. And also, for those of you who don't have the bottle, probably the darkest, definitely the darkest rosé of the flight. So, Francesco, do you want to?
Yes, I jump in. Thanks to everybody for being here. I try to be quick. As Elizabeth was saying, we are in the upper part of Maremma, higher elevation. Our vineyards are between almost 200 until almost 600 meters above sea level. We have a kind of continental soil with Cab Franc, but also a more Mediterranean one with Alicante Nero, so the Grenache we were mentioning as a main varietal. We farm biodynamically, so exploiting kind of the wilderness of Maremma is kind of easier, we can say. So biodiversity and soil fertility are crucial. We make some pasta, we make some olive oil as well. Going to the Rosato. So we are in the heart of the Metalliferous Hills, which is a UNESCO geopark. You can be elected as a geopark if you have a special interest in the geology under the geology standpoint. So give you the analyte of the differences we have within Ampeleia, we go from Pliocene soil, which is the one of the Rosato, towards more old soil dating back to 25 million years back, where we have the Cab Franc. The Rosato is made of Alicante Nero infused in the Carignano grape, so another variety, as Elizabeth was anticipating. Basically, the idea was starting up from the vineyard, a clay and especially sandy parcel of Carignano. In the past, we were vinifying this parcel in red, and we liked especially the savoriness, the saltiness of this Carignano, and we thought could be a great idea to vinifying it in a rosé. And then, so I was talking about the harder part, so acidity and saltiness, and then we thought, given our vinifications with our two other red wines, Litro and Alicante Nero, to add Alicante Nero in the blend. Alicante Nero, as Bruni was saying, gives elegances, elegant touch. Especially I like the grapefruit sensation that gives into the blend. And so basically that's the idea of the wine. Recalling the method, so we direct press the Carignano, so vinifying in white the Carignano, and then we come to the darker color. Probably we have the infusion for 10 days of 20% whole cluster of Alicante Nero. So this gives, of course, color, gives also a bit of tannic texture into the wine. And so it's conceived to be a gastronomic wine. So can be shrimp, a nice pairing, for instance. I've been in a very nice restaurant in Japan, specialized in tempura meals, so veggies and fish tempura, and was delightful. But you can also go for a grilled pork at the barbecue, very simple. So that's what I like of the wine. It's a 22 vintage. With me, I have a 20 vintage. So is the idea of a wine that can also age in the cellar without being afraid of. I like the question about the oak in the winemaking. So we vinify in concrete the Rosato. We invest quite a lot of focus in our Rosato. As you know, we produce 35,000 bottles of this wine out of the 250, more or less, thousands of total production. So it's a wine really identitarian for us. In the future, we started recently producing the Rosato, and in the future, maybe we can have another label and try to get something a bit different, a bit more, again, even more deeper, using the
Interesting. There is a question: why did you choose concrete for the maturation?
Yes, for us, concrete is a good compromise. Maintaining, it doesn't give any real footprint in the wine, but also we like the concrete, which is it's not linen. Inside, in this case, it's rough concrete. We like to maintain a bit of grip. So the tannic texture is, you maintain the tannic texture in the wine. So we are in a place which is very energetic, kind of fresher compared to probably the other climates you have in Maremma. And so we like to maintain this kind of, on one side, elegance, being tight, direct, but at the same time, this energy coming from the southern part of Tuscany.
And is it unfiltered?
Is it unfiltered? Correct.
I think what's interesting for me is the idea of the Grenache infused in the Carignan, because that I'm seeing, I think I know about 4 rosés that do this. It's a very interesting technique in that it doesn't dominate the wine, but just contributes to the complexity. Yeah, almost a claret with that assertive superstructure. I'm just going to do a quick plug. Francesco is going to be in Edinburgh on the 18th of June. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. I'm flying to UK. I'm going to be in Manchester and Edinburgh in between 17th and 20th of June. And
so if anyone wants to get in touch, and if anyone wants to taste the Ampeleia or the Rosamundi from Morris Farms, they will both be shown in London on the 19th of June. If anyone wants to follow that up. I mean, what I'm thrilled about for this tasting of 6 wines, and I hope everyone agrees, the diversity of all of the wines, and every single wine is showing surprising freshness for southern Tuscany, a beautiful purity of fruit, but also incredible diversity of style. I don't know if anyone here who's tasting the wine agrees with me. With the Carignan, it's a particularly fresh variety. Is that one reason why you were very keen on using it? Oh, I think Francesco's frozen. No, the end. It's I'm doing. I can send. The Circle of Wine Writers have publicised on the same day as the Old Vine Conference sadly, at the same day, I'm doing a rosé day in London at Trivet Restaurant, but it's in the Circle of Wine Writers publicity. Any other producers who would like to comment before we sign off? Eva, you were the first.
Well, I think it's interesting to see, of course, the diversity. Of course, I think that you could feel the seriousness and the passion that all the six of us and all the other colleagues from Rosemary's put in our winemaking. We are all different stories. We are basically medium-sized wineries, and if you see also as at the production size that we do of the rosé, it's quite clear that it's not just climbing on the wave, or commercial wave of the rosé making, because it really, on the contrary, it responds to, as I was saying, to our story as a need to complete the description of this kind of Tuscany, that it's not just made for beautiful reds, but also can give beautiful coastal rosé.
Absolutely. Very, very impressive range. And we're getting some good comments.
Yes.
I fear we have to draw to a conclusion, much to my regret, because I think this has been a fabulous tasting. Thank you so much to Rosemary's and everyone involved for allowing us to taste these fascinating and very enjoyable wines, because it's one thing to have wines that tell stories, but you also want to enjoy drinking them. And I think that's true of all of these wines. So everyone involved is due a huge thank you from the Circle of Wine Writers and those of us here. I hope more members will watch it on the video in due course, and we'll spread the word about the variety of rosés, because I think, Liz, that's something you've been trying to tell the world about, and that's so important. Provence and pale, pretty pinks are one thing, but there's so much more to rosé, as this tasting has shown us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I would like to,
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. And I would like also to say that for any information, they can write directly to the wineries or send an email to us, to the association. And we are completely at the disposal for, any information they may need.